A small-town sheriff digs deep to find out about the death of his brother. After being hindered by some corrupt cops, he now goes undercover, vigilante style, where he finds something unexpected. The movie begins with Michael Savion, a deputy sheriff, and his team on a drug operation that ends up costing the life of a little girl. After hearing about the little girl, Michael trains at the station. Then, David, Michael's troublemaking brother, who is also a gang member, arrives to tell him that he will leave the gang life for good, and mentions it's because of a girl called Gloria, whose picture he keeps with him.
Get married too. Yeah, she's beautiful.
Michael didn't believe David at first because of his past history, but knew his brother was serious when David showed him their mother's ring, which he intended to propose with. Michael agrees to help him with everything, and David accepts, but a gang member of his own sees him hugging Michael and reports everything to the boss. That night, David gets a call from Anthony, another member of his gang, about a job and reluctantly agrees. He arrives at a railroad track and greets Anthony, but suddenly, some car lights get turned on, and David's own gang members, including Elias, who is their boss, arrive at the scene. They surround him after telling Anthony to step away. David gets accused of being an informant, but he strictly denies it. He tells Elias that he wants out after listing everything he has done for the gang, but Elias tells him that the only way out is death. Elias seems to give David a chance when he tells him to get past the boys surrounding him, but David gets beat up, and Zed, Elias's boss, shoots and kills him. Michael hears the news about his brother's death the next day and arrives at the crime scene with his partner, Billy, although he is saddened after seeing David's dead body. After a few days, Michael is back at the station, and Billy shows him a couple of gang tattoos. Michael recognizes one of them, called the Red Stick Assassins, and asks him to run the .50 caliber handgun his brother was shot with. Then, after failing to get a single call back from the police department about his brother's case, Michael goes to the station and asks for Detective Hardwick, who is the lead detective on David's case. He is escorted by a female officer to Hardwick, who is in the middle of telling a joke to the other detectives, and asks him about the progress of the case. Hardwick tells him that the best thing they could find was that David's death was gang-related. He also tells Michael that David's case has been filed unsolved, even though it has only been a week. Michael confronts them about their unwillingness to solve the case, but Hardwick mentions David's past and tells Michael that the bad guys did the dirty work for them in killing his brother, right to his face. When Michael was about to leave after calling them a disgrace, Hardwick punched him a couple of times, while the other detective held him from the back and electrocuted him with his taser gun. Later, Hardwick visits Michael, who is locked up and handcuffed, in the toilet. He toys with him a little bit and uncuffs him. Michael walks out and talks to Billy about probably being benched due to the incident with the detectives. After having a nightmare about everything that happened, including the death of his brother and the little girl, Michael arrives at a tattoo shop, smoking a cigarette. He gets his whole body tattooed, including the tattoo of the Red Stick Assassins on his arm. Then, he rides on a motorbike to another apartment, which he rents after arriving at a building in a gang neighborhood. Later that night, Michael walks around the neighborhood and gets surrounded by some black gang members who surround him. He antagonizes one of them and gets into a fight with them. Michael beats up the three men and takes their gun with some of the money after they leave, fleeing the scene. Michael boldly stood in front of them as they left the scene with their car. Meanwhile, Elias's room gets buzzed as he is watching, as Anya, a female member of his gang, tortures two girls who are tied with a rope. She lets Anthony and Squat, one of the gang members who beat up David, in. They tell Elias about the new assassin member who beat up 4 other gang members alone. Elias seems to be impressed by what he hears and orders his men to find him after finding out that he has a tattoo of the gang. But he wants to know if the new guy is willing to kill a cop before letting him in. At the same time, Michael calls Billy and asks him to cross-check on Elias and the Red Stick assassins. Then, Anthony and Squat find Michael outside after a while when he is smoking alone. They invite him into their car and take him to the police station for their test. Michael fearlessly walks into the station and ambushes Hardwick, who is about to get into his car. He punches him and puts his head into the window, impressing Anthony and Squat.
Hey, need a hand with that?
Over the coming days, Michael rolls around with Anthony and Squat. One night, he hears Anthony speaking about David, whom he doesn't believe to be an informant, unlike Squat. Michael gets curious when he hears that the order came from Zed, Elias's boss. Anthony tells Michael that Elias wants to meet him, and they take him to see their boss the next day at some warehouse, where they conduct some of their operations. He stares at Anya and takes a seat after Elias invites him. Elias begins to ask him some questions about why he is here, and Michael mentions he was in prison. When Elias asks him about his previous crew, Michael mentions the names of some of the members of the Red Stick assassins and where they were incarcerated. He also answers his other questions confidently, and Elias welcomes him to the organization. But he asks him to take a certain test first. A visit to another rival gang, where Michael will take charge by showing force. Michael agrees, and a party is started. After spending some time seeing women and drugs on display, Michael leaves the party. He goes with Anthony and beats up the rival gang members who are hanging out with a girl. Anthony jumps out of the car and joins the fight as Michael holds one of them at gunpoint. Later, Michael and Anthony hang out with a beer and whiskey in their hands. They kept talking about their personal life, but Anthony mentioned his pregnant sister. But their conversation is interrupted when some men with guns arrive at the scene and start shooting. Michael quickly alerts Anthony and saves his life. The next day, Michael sees Anthony arguing with his sister, who happens to be Gloria. Michael remembered her from his brother's photo, but kept walking and joined Anthony. Squat wanted some payback for the previous night, but Anthony tells him that they are wanted by the boss. At night, Elias promotes Michael and calls him his general after appreciating what he is doing. Michael didn't understand at first, but after Anthony reminded Elias that Michael was locked up for a while, Elias told him that he would be responsible for conquering other gangs, who would in turn work for the assassins. Michael gets handed an assignment to target a rival gang member called Kelvin Martins. Michael then immediately realizes that the assassins have a tie with the cops after seeing the file and discovers Hardwick has been working for them. He accepts the assignment and arrives at Martin's place with some of the assassins' men, including Anya and Anthony. He assigns every man their duties and barges into the place with their guns. Anya had to fight with some girl, but Michael found Kelvin, who beat up Squat. Michael takes over and engages in a fight with Kelvin. Michael beats up Kelvin using some impressive fighting skills and knocks him down with a hard punch. With the help of Anthony, Michael cuffs him with a zip tie and tells him that he now belongs to the assassins. After completing his assignment successfully, Michael arrives at a party of the assassins where Anya is waiting for him. She starts questioning the reason he arrived at the assassins, but Michael seduces her and they sleep together. However, while he was asleep, Anya took a sample of his DNA from his mouth. Later, he goes to find Gloria and tells her that he is the brother of David. When she doesn't believe it, Michael tells her that he is really there to get her and the baby to safety. Michael mentions the ring, but Gloria breaks down and leaves him standing, even though he showed her the photo of his brother and her. Anthony appears at the doorstep of Michael's new apartment and tells him that Elias wants to see him immediately for some reason. Then, they arrive at the warehouse with Anya present at Elias's office. Elias tells Michael to sit down as Anya takes his gun and holds it. He presents Michael with a challenge to fight a man called Hector Gonzalez, the general of Arturo, the leader of a dangerous human trafficking ring. Elias warns him not to lose the fight, as their organization will be working for Arturo for the rest of their lives, but promises him great riches if he wins. Michael accepts the challenge. Meanwhile, Anthony finds out about the identity of Michael and calls him to tell him that he wants him to help his sister later. Anya comes to his apartment alone and reveals that she knows that he is a cop. But Anya also reveals that she is a deep undercover federal agent who has been working with her team to capture the assassins. After she discovers that Michael is working on his own, she tells him not to mess up the day of the fight, as she intends to arrest every member of the assassins who will gather at the fight, including Zed. The fight starts after a while, and Hector, who is a huge fighter with a gladiator-like physique, beats up Michael at first. But Michael fights back and wins the fight after forcing Hector to tap out. After the fight, Anya signals her team, and Michael tries to take on Zed, who is on his way out. But he finds out that the Zed has a gun, and Elias appears at the scene, holding Gloria by her neck. Then, the cops arrive at the scene, and Zed escapes, taking Gloria with him, leaving Elias to deal with Michael. After holding neck and neck with Elias, Michael punches him and leaves him to Billy, who arrests him after beating him. Michael chases Zed, who has left the place with Gloria inside his car. After following him on his motorbike, Michael manages to land on the roof of the car and forces the car to flip over. He rushes to rescue Gloria from the wreckage and gets her out, but has to face Zed, who holds a gun at him while standing on the top of the wrecked car. Before he could fire a single shot, Anya arrived out of nowhere and killed him. The movie ends with Michael promising to take care of Gloria, while Anya is next to both of them. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.